Dante Moore's 2026 NFL draft stock hangs in the balance against Texas Tech's elite defense.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast. Cover your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. I'm an NFL draft analyst with Bleacher Report. That's my guy, Keith Sanchez. He's the director of scouting with the Draft Network and 2019 national champion with the LSU Tigers. And as always, thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day shot for being our everydayers. Oregon versus Texas Tech. We have to break it down from a perspective, offensive prospects to watch, defensive prospects to watch, and key matchups to watch in this game. But before we get into that, today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Keith, Dante Moore, a guy that is polarizing because no one knows what he's going to do postseason. No one knows if he's going back to Oregon. No one knows if he's going to the NFL. I believe that I think it says OC, who took another coaching job, who's leaving Oregon. He's going to another school. There's a little bit of shakeup, I think, in the coaching staff in that regard. I think he might be taking a head coaching job, so he might be pulling some staff with him, stuff like that. And if you're losing your OC, maybe you do go to the NFL. And then in a year that it is quote unquote down because it's not 5 or 6 quarterbacks that could be evaluated as first round picks, you are definitely in the conversation for QB1 alongside Fernando Mendoza. It's really just right now it's a 2-man race. It's you and Mendoza if you decide to declare. Now, and you come off a game where you lit up JMU and we kind of predicted that would happen. They didn't have the horses to run with you. You're going up against a defense with a secondary that can play man, that can play zone, and they're stingy, and a pass rush, a team that they don't have to blitz you. They can truly get after you with 4. Lee Hunter, David Bailey, Romello Height, they can get after you with their front 4. I want to see how he handles it because pressure has been a little bit of his Achilles heel this year. He's not been great when he's been pressured. He hasn't been pressured a lot, but when he gets pressured, that's when you see the turnover-worthy plays, the inaccuracy, or the bad decision-making with the football. Texas Tech can absolutely make that a full game for you. So, hey, how does he play when he is pressured? Is he making the right decisions, getting the ball to the right guys, taking the outlets, things of that nature? Honestly, kind of gauge the situation. It's like a heavyweight fight, Keith. The first couple rounds, you're watching guys just kind of, feeling out the other fighter. This is a type of game where maybe the quick game is your best friend because of the fact that you know that they have the type of pass rush to get to you.
And yeah, DP, and I think that's going to be very important for Dante Moore, right? Just to kind of understand the rhythm and the context of this football game, right? And what it's going to take because of what I'm about to mention, and that's Texas Tech's offense, right? And this offense has some talented players, and I'm specifically talking about two wide receivers, Reggie, Virgil, and Caleb Douglas, right? Both guys who transferred into the program, I believe, this year. But listen, both of these guys are talented, right? Reggie kind of reminds me a little bit of a young man that I liked last year, Jalen McMillan, right? Just one of those kind of moving guys that can find open spots in zone defenses. And then Caleb Douglas. Caleb Douglas is, I think he's a bigger body. He's listed at
6'4" or something like that.
Hall of Fame. Can go up and get it, and he has good athleticism to be a kind of a high cut guy, right? So I look at the Texas Tech wide receivers. I mean, it puts pressure on Dante Moore to have to make plays. I think this offense can potentially score more than what people think because of, it's been a moderate conversation about Texas Tech and what they spent in NIL and bringing in transfers, but I don't think it's been as big of a deal as it actually is when you really look at how many transfer are actually on this team, right? You're like, oh shoot, they just got this kid, they just got this young man, they just got this young man, right? But it's showing out. They wind up being a top 4 seed in the college football playoffs. But in pertaining to this matchup, guys like Reggie Virgil, Caleb Douglas, those 2 wide receivers, definitely get your eyes on. But I think they will make some plays against this defense. And I go back to the Indiana Oregon matchup, right? And how Elijah Surratt, when you think about it, he was able to take off against these guys, right? Against the Oregon cornerbacks. Like he went and was like, you know what? I'm about to show y'all like I'm really doggone good at playing this wide receiver position. And I think when you look at Bear Morton throwing the football, but throwing it to Caleb Douglas and Reggie Virgil, that trio, that trio could be a dangerous trio, and reason why you think this game can be a lot closer and it can catch some people off guard.
Keith, I'll throw out two other names on that offense. Coy Eakin, the slot receiver, 6'2", 210. He reminds me, I'm blanking on the kid's name, out of Arkansas this past draft, who went to the Detroit Lions. The wide receiver.
Tesla?
Yeah, he kind of reminds me of Tesla a little bit. But then it's the tight end. That's why I really think that this game, it could be a battle of tight ends if they really feed these cats. Terrence Carter Jr., 6'2", 245. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Harold Fannin in terms of, but I think Harold's a little bit more physical, a little bit more filled in frame, that former defensive player that turned tight end. But this kid, Terrence Carter, can play. Like from, the way that they get him the football, the yak ability, the athleticism in open field. He can absolutely create with the football in his hands, and they do a lot of design stuff to give him kind of free runs to space. You know what I mean? And against this Oregon defense, if they are able to prioritize the receivers and slow them down, that's the matchup of getting Terrence Carter Jr. versus those linebackers, and maybe even Dylan. Listen to us. I'll talk about that next topic. My guy Thinneman. But yeah, I think Terrence Carter is the guy. Like you said, Baron Morton. I believe they use some tempo too at Texas Tech. If they get they're one of those teams, they get 5 or 6 yards on first down, you can expect probably them to go no huddle and try to keep your personnel on the field. Yeah, I think with Baron Morton has a lot of weapons at his disposal. Weapons that people don't know, they're not household names, but these dudes can play. Like from Douglas, Eakin, Virgil really has started to catch my eye late in the season. You know what I mean? I knew about Caleb Douglas in that offense, but when I saw him playing well, I think he was balling out against BYU in the Big 12 championship game.
That's what it was.
And stuff like that. I can't remember if is he going to Senior Bowl?
Yeah, he is. Yep, both guys are. Reggie and Caleb, both are going.
Okay, yeah. So going to the Senior Bowl is going to be big for him. Yeah, this could be a high scoring game. Like this really could be a high scoring game, Keith, where it's one of those situations. 2 minutes left on the clock. Who's got the ball last? Like this is one of those type of games. If Dante Moore and Baron Morton can get going, now both of them are playing good defenses as well. So it's not one discount either one of the defenses. But if for some reason the defenses don't step up to the task, this could be a high-scoring game. So I'm not telling y'all to bet the over, but just kind of assess it before you go put your bet in.
Yep. With DP, you already mentioned that, right? You talked about that both teams have talented defensive prospects, right? And I think what we're about to do is we're about to get into those guys and get your list out, because it is a bevy of names for both sides of the football, right? This is a lot of defensive prospects that we're about to cover. So coming up next, we're going to talk about defensive prospects with this Oregon versus Texas Tech matchup coming up next.
Nobody knows your money goals better than you. Robinhood puts you in control of your money with tools that work as hard as you do, locking in on every opening, beating your PR, beating it again. Channel that drive into your money. Robinhood puts you in control of your money. Trade stocks and ETFs, options, futures, and crypto, all on one platform. You can now build and execute your own trades from a desktop with Robinhood Legends advanced tools, or take the advantage of the new Robinhood strategies with a tailored portfolio managed by a team of experts. You expect more from yourself. Expect more from your money. Get started today at Robinhood.com/your money. Again, that's Robinhood.com/your money. Your money, your move. Defensive prospects to watch when Oregon faces Texas Tech. Man, I'm excited for this matchup, Keith, because this is one of those matchups where it's just a lot of guys, it's a lot of draft prospects. And I think I don't think he's the number one linebacker in the draft, but he's been playing like the best linebacker in the country. Jacob Rodriguez, you know what I mean, for Texas Tech. And a lot of people even wanted him to be in the Heisman conversation this season as well. He's listed at 6'1", 230 pounds. this is a playmaker, man. This is an absolute playmaker. Him and Ben Roberts, the mustache. I think they call themselves the mustache gang or the stash gang, whatever, because they rock the mustache. Man, athletic, rangy, really good in coverage. No, this is a guy, again, he's 6'1", 235. So you see the lateral movement skills and everything. He's got 4 interceptions this year, 3 pass breakups. He's around the football in a game where I expect to see a lot of Noah Whittington at times, because he's like, him, and they got a bevy of running backs at Oregon.
Yeah, they do.
They just like rotate them. And I'm like, okay, you know what I mean? Like, you guys got it. Like, they just got that. I mean, that's why was it Mekhi Hughes?
Yeah,
jumped in the portal after the first 2 weeks of the season. He's like, yeah, this ain't the place for me. I'm not gonna get the carries. But I'm looking at Ben Roberts, and I'm looking at Jacob Rodriguez. Can you play the run and play it well? Can you trigger downhill, stop these running backs in the alley, stop them in the lane, flow with them on the zone runs and the outside runs? Because these guys got speed too. Like, they're running backs at Oregon. I think it's like a freshman that they have that can absolutely like scoot. So it's like, you want to make sure that you take the right angles, keep these guys in the backfield, and limit the explosive plays on the ground. To then, because at the end of the day, Keith, what we always say on this pod, you gotta earn the right to rush the passer. David Bailey, Lee Hunter, and those boys are going to do their jobs on if they do their job on the front lines. You got to back them up in the run game and keep keep Oregon's offense from being balanced. Don't let them be balanced, because if you take it and make them handicapped and make them play one-dimensional, now they're playing into your hands because you have the pass rush to get after them.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, DP. I'm gonna go with a name, and this is for specific reasons, right? I'm gonna go with Mateo Ugalele as far as a defensive prospect to watch, and I know I've been mentioning his name a lot lately, and I just the reason is because could he be a name that's falling down draft boards partially because of what everybody else is doing, right? And what I'm saying is, like, even in this matchup, there are 2 edge rushers, or a hybrid guy, talking about Romello Height and David Bailey, who's an edge rusher. And there's this matchup, DP, that's on the other team that have kind of leapfrogged you, right? In this hierarchy of ranking edge rushers and where do they fall. So I'm looking at you like, hey, young man, you're gonna have to make an impact, right? Like, you have to make an impact. And I think he has to make a decision on, listen, okay, the sack numbers I think sit right around 5 for the season, right? You sit around 5 sacks for the season. So I don't know if anybody's going to place you in the bucket as the DPR and designated pass rusher, immediate impact guy on the edge, things like that. So are you going to be dominant in the run game, right? Are you going to be that physical enforcer in the run game? And I'm even thinking about the young man, I'm blanking on his name, the edge rusher from Minnesota, right? And probably very similar body types, just overall, but he's been more impactful. I think double-digit sacks on the season, but also you see him kick inside and do some stuff in the run game, get upfield, be disruptive. Like, there's a lot of guys, DP, that are starting to climb the rankings when you talk about the edge rusher. And I think a big time matchup like this for Mateo could go a long way for his draft stock, because he was a guy that, we've all discussed as, okay, cool, this could be a potential first round. There could be a top 10 pick. And then you slowly seeing the name fall out of the first round into the second round. And then you slowly start seeing more and more names pop up. So that's why I'm looking at Mateo, because I'm looking at, even in this one matchup, there are 2 other edge rushers that have, quote unquote, you can say, leapfrogged you in this process.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, I think I have the name pulled up. The Minnesota edge rusher, Anthony Smith.
Yeah, Anthony Smith. Yeah, yep.
A similar body type, 6'6", 285. He got like 14 sacks in the season. Those are the numbers we wanted to see from Mateo. We wanted to see him take that step forward and start to dominate the game, because he's got all the physical ability to do so. Yeah, and he's flashed some finesse moves in terms of like the cross chop, and it was like, you're like 6'6", like you really shouldn't be able to do this physically, like, but you can. It's just like, can we get some consistency from you? And in this type of game. And Baron Morton is, I think, listed like 6'2", but he's not a tall quarterback. So it's like, you can get pressure, get your hands up, like, and then pressuring him, like, bat some balls and pressuring Baron Morton. I was watching this film. I got a late round grade, a day 3 grade on him. I think this is a guy that once you get pressure on him, you can disrupt him. Like you can get into his head. You can start feeling like, he starts feeling edge rushes around him, even when they're not there. Not saying seeing ghosts, but start hearing footsteps. You got to get to him early. And I think, Mateo, that this is a game for you to be able to do that. And not just him, Keith. I think on their defensive line, this Oregon defensive line is really good. Bear Alexander, who's going back to school, he announced he found a home. He's going back to school, back to Oregon. And I think he's trying to work himself into that early day 2, maybe first round type of range. It's a really talented player, but it's Amari Washington. Like they're quick-footed, 330-pound defensive tackle. He's been one of the better defensive tackles in the country. And I think for Texas Tech runs the ball too. Even though it's an air raid offense spread, they'll run the ball. It's not easy when you see a number 1 and in terms of Barry Alexander, and then you see Amari Washington sitting right there. Yeah, that's not an easy thing. You see 52 and you see number 1 on that interior defensive line. Then you got DJ Ugalele. They got Tuioti as well. Who's like 6'3", 265. Like this defensive line is kind of built to handle some run stuff. So like they will be able to limit it and force Bear Morton into more. Hey, you got to throw the ball more than being balanced. Take away, I think it was like Cameron Dickey and those guys. And they got a running back for Texas Tech who's more of I think it's James Williams might have been. Like he's a dual threat kid. So like he run routes, he's explosive. He could be a matchup for those linebackers, but you got to stop the run early. So then you can allow Mateo. Sorry, I'm not calling DJU. You let Mateo Ugalele, his younger brother, Mateo, 6'5", 272, get after the quarterback, Keith. But I think, you flip over to Texas Tech. Back to Texas Tech. For me, I'm looking at Lee Hunter, Keith.
Yeah, like just about to name him. Yep.
I'm looking at Lee Hunter, man, 6'4", 330, and in this guys, I'm telling you now, if you need a defensive tackle, this is a pretty good class to need one because there's some guys in this class. Not even if you don't have to spend a first round pick on them. Like you can get some guys on day 2 that can come in and be day 1 starters for you. Lee Hunter can rush the passer. He stops the run. He's physical. He's athletic for a big 330 guy. And I think he got a chance to put a spotlight on himself and be one of the more dominant players in this game. Because if you force Oregon to double team you, that's going to be the conundrum, right? Keep the quickest pass to the quarterback is up the middle, but then you got Romello Height and David Bailey off the edge. It's like, all right, who do we try to prioritize?
Yep.
Right? You saw what was it? Texas A&M sitting like 2 or 3 guys to Ruben Bain. And they left Akeem Mesidor 1-on-1. Akeem Mesidor gets the sack. It's that situation with Texas Tech as well. That's why this defense is so good. I'm looking at Lee Hunter, man. I'm excited to see how he plays in this game, especially against the run, because we know Oregon will try to be balanced and really keep themselves playing ahead of the chains.
Yeah, and this is going to be one of the things I think that Oregon, right, and just knowing Dan Lanning's approach to football games, and honestly, just his approach to building a roster in a program, right? It's about being physical in the trenches, and they want to win. And I think that taste in their mouth from last year to where Ohio State just came and punched them in the mouth in the playoffs, I think they're going to want to right their wrongs, but they're going to want to do it a certain way. They're going to want to do it physically, right? To say, like, you know what, we're a little angry about everything that happened since last year and dominating the trenches. And I think it's going to be for a guy like Lee Hunter, where you look at Oregon, who's been I guess you can almost put them in the blue blood program type right over the past 20 years, right? They've been one of the better programs consistently over the past 20, 25 years. Against a Texas Tech, who's kind of they're the underdog when it comes to it's not as much blue blood, right? They pop up every now and then. You get the Graham Harrell and Michael Crabtree type of situation. And so they're going to want to walk in there and be like, we big brother, right? And we're about to move people around, but it's up to guys like Lee Hunter. Like, listen, don't let this uniform fool you, right? Like, I'm on an NIL mission, but I could have been a lot of different places. So don't let this fool you. So I'm definitely looking at that battle in the trenches because I think it's going to be a punch and a punch back type of thing. But DP, let's do this, man. This is quickly becoming the favorite part of these episodes that we do when we do these prospect breakdowns is the key matchups, right? When we talk about this player versus this player is going to determine the matchup, the game, and there are a lot of 2026 NFL draft prospects in this matchup. So we're going to talk about that coming up next.
This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Whether you're starting a new routine or jumping into player projections for the first time, trying something new can feel like a challenge. But with Prize Picks, it's always good to be right. With high pressure football matchups every weekend and elite hoops action almost every night, the action never slows down. And Prize Picks lets you stay in control. Prize Picks is the daily fantasy app that makes watching sports even more exciting by letting you build lineups based on player projections. No drafts, no waiting, just pick more or less and play your way. Getting started on Prize Picks was quick and simple. The app is super easy to navigate. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks is good to be right. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot for being our everydayers. Key matchups to watch when Texas Tech faces Oregon. And Keith, I go right to, I think this should be, if you're talking about anything's must-see TV in terms of a matchup, I look at the tackle situation for Oregon versus the edge rushers.
That's exactly where I was going.
That's the must-see matchup. Keith. Listen, like saying when we go to the Senior Bowl, like, listen, I want to see the one-on-ones. I need to see the one-on-ones, Keith. I need the David Bailey one-on-one with Isaiah World, right? And Isaiah World being the big, athletically gifted, physical player that he is, but he's still a little raw from a technique standpoint. David Bailey's one of those guys that could absolutely take advantage of that, right? And then you got the speed guy, in terms of just the fastball. And both of these dudes have insane first-step quickness. David Bailey and Romello Height. Romello Hyatt's the more of the kind of thing, just pure fastball off the edge. David Bailey's the first step quickness, but he kind of has everything as a pass rusher: speed to power, hand usage, spin move, dip and rip. I think that's going to be the matchup because that's the blind side of Dante Moore. Isaiah World being that left tackle, if they put you on that island, if Texas Tech can stop the run and force Dante Moore to throw the ball in true drop back sets, and they get to pin their man, Keith, get to pin their ears back. That's what I'm looking for. Like that's the deciding factor of that game. If you put them in those type of situations, and now we get to see how that offensive line, because the interior offensive line for Oregon is really good. Like they got a good interior offensive line. I'm looking forward to that matchup with Lee Hunter and I think it's Lalalu. I think is how you say his name. I think it's the left guard, Pregnon and Lalalu. Lalalu's the center. Pregnon, who's got some first round buzz at left guard. It's this the trenches, Keith. The trenches is what I'm looking forward to. That's going to decide this game through and through.
Yeah, and you go, I guess, just talking specifically and letting them know exactly what we're looking for, right? Is the combination of offensive tackles, Isaiah World and Alex Harkey versus the edge rushers, David Bailey and Romello Height. And I think just being able to get those reps, right? Like they're just watching those. This is a resume game when it comes to NFL draft evaluations, right? Because you know that you're watching good on good, right? Like, and who's able to win those matchups. And I think of a young man like Isaiah World, who's kind of fell down the draft boards a little bit, right? He went from a consensus round one guy to some people are saying, late second, early third, potentially. And then his teammate, Alex Harker, who's kind of floated in that second roundish range, in my opinion, right? Like that's kind of where he's been for a minute. I think for both of those guys, it's like, hey, like how are you able to do against guys that are going the other way? Meaning that David Bailey has been doing nothing but adding to his draft stock. Romello Height has been doing nothing but adding to his draft stock to where you're like, you know what? Let me show y'all how talented and how skilled I really am. As an NFL draft prospect, I think this should be the matchup of the game. And I can't remember, DP. It's going to be really fun. And it was a edge rusher and tackle. I know that Utah's two tackles was playing in the game.
Yeah.
You know what? It was Texas Tech. We had to watch Romello Height versus David Bell. I was trying to remember, I'm like, who did they play against? And it was two edge rushers versus
Caleb Lomu and Spencer Fano.
Yeah, yep. And that was very early on in the season.
Man, that was a battle too. Like both, like they was give and take. The tackles had their wins, the edge rushers had their wins, but that's the type of games we want to see. Like just see like how the game within the game. And I think for me, Keith, when I look at this matchup, this matchup has a lot riding on it because of the fact of like Isaiah World, like you said, hey, proven I'm one of the better tackles in this class. Yeah, I got some refinement, but I have things that you could coach up, and I can be a first round talent for you if you got the right.
Or you can be. You remember, man, was this a couple years ago? Matthew Bergeron from Syracuse and how he
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
went early second, right? Like
And
and
he
that's
got
what
kicked out in the guard, I think, for the
yeah,
Falcons.
yeah, yep. And that's where you kind of potentially want to live, right? It's like, okay, cool. If I can't get in that first round range, look, the first 10
Mhm.
picks off the board in the second round, if I could get there, like that's still a really good spot too.
No, 100%. I think that's why I'm looking at this matchup so closely because Pregnon, the left guard, like you look at his situation, like he's one of the highest rated guards in this class right now.
Yep.
Hey, you versus Lee Hunter, if you get that 1-on-1, that could stamp you,
Well,
that could cement you.
yeah, and not only that, but Romello Height, and not just simply that the fact that he doesn't just simply play edge rusher, and he'll
Mhm.
play stack linebacker, and they'll send him on blitzes and twists and stunts, and
Yeah.
these green dog, red dogs type situations that you may see a Romello Height versus Pregnon type of situation, right? Where
Mhm.
Romello is blitzing up the A gap, and obviously just being able to test Pregnon's ability to move laterally, right, and deal with that type of
Yep.
quickness coming off of the second level, but definitely be something else to kind of to look at and evaluate.
And kid, I'll say this, like we talk about Isaiah World. I think you circle David Bailey in terms of like what could this game do for his draft stock. Like you said, he's been ascending since the start of this season. Really, he's been on a constant climb and ascension, just being as one of the best defensive players, one of the best pass rushers and edge rushers in this class. And in college football, I think he leads the nation. I think in sacks, or he was leading the nation in sacks and pressures and everything else. You go out here and you have a Ruben Bain type of game from against Texas A&M, and you got 4 sacks
Mhm.
and all these pressures, and it's just like, how do you keep him out of round one? You know what I mean? Like, I don't even think people are arguing against him at round one anymore. But like at that point, then it's like, well, how early do we hear his name? You know what I mean? To go up against Oregon and Dante Moore and this offensive line, and I believe they do flip him and Romello, so they'll rush from right or left at times. Yeah, Keith, like if he goes off, talk like you let me know in your mindset. He has a big game in terms of David Bailey. He has a big game against this offensive line. 3 sacks, multiple pressures, right? And he's just getting it to Dante Moore. How early? How much do you think that will like not just raise his stock? His stock's been raised. How much will it cement him as more than like people look at it like, you know what? I don't see him falling on round one.
Yeah, I think it will put him there, right? Because he has the production as far as the statistics, right? And then you can
Mhm.
see the fluid movements. Who he doesn't remind me of this guy, but I feel very similar, and I know why people question David Bailey because I have some of those same questions. The guy he reminds me of, and I'm not saying an appear they are a comparison. I'm saying that
Mhm.
there is a mixed bag of how we feel about them, and that's Iowa State edge rusher Will McDonald from a couple years ago. And I think some people really loved Will McDonald. I think
Yeah.
some people liked him and thought he was a good prospect. And I think that's where David Bailey falls. But I think when you match the production with what he's able to do, right? Like, in doing in big time games, then it's like to me, it goes like, okay, yeah, this is a round one prospect, and keyword being prospect, right? Like this is the same
Mhm.
NFL draft where we're seeing young men like Felix and Duke Uzoma go in the first round, right? Where nobody's expecting. And just being a premium
Yeah.
on edge rushers, I do think that he puts himself in the conversation of can I get home? Like, and even you think about Isaiah Foskey from a couple years ago, right? Where you're talking about a raw prospect, like he was a raw and a
Yeah.
projectable, like a guy that you really had to project. And he didn't go in the first round, he went in the second round. But I mean, even if you ask the Saints if they're getting return on that investment as a second rounder, they'll tell you
I don't
no
even know
way.
if he plays. I haven't
Yeah.
heard his name since he's been drafted. Like, so
So
I don't even know if he plays.
yeah, so I agree with you with the David Bailey narrative and conversation that yeah, like you go ahead and etch your name in stone and you get people to just kind of overlook like, hey, you know what? However he gets it done, and it could be DP. My guy David Bailey he needs that package upgrade, right? Like he needs some gloves, he needs
Yeah,
a arm brace, he
yo,
needs some
he
some
be
socks,
bare
some something
knuckled,
DP.
like he bare knuckle, bare arms, just
Yeah.
kind of like I don't need any aesthetics, guys. I don't care. Like I just feel like I want to talk to him, Keith. I want to see I want to talk to him, like talk. Hey, brother, I'm trying. Like, I want to know what goes into this. Like, what's your
Yep.
mindset? Because I never see him smile on the field. I don't even think I've seen any pictures of him happy. Like, you know what I mean? So I'm like, you know what? I want a defensive. I want an edge rusher like that. He just seems angry all the time. And for those who like just like from a number standpoint, like you talk about the production. Per PFF, he has 14 sacks, 20 QB hits, 43 pressures on the season, a pass rush win rate of 22%. But on true dropback sets, he got 10 of his 14 sacks, 9 of his 20 QB hits, and 24 of his 43 pressures and hurries. And on true dropback sets, his pass rush win rate jumps to 40%. Like, this dude knows how to get after the quarterback. He's just at 6'3", 250. He's not a true defensive end. He's more of a 3-4, to me, outside linebacker.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I think you look at, especially after losing Michael Parsons, you think about the Dallas Cowboys beating up, I think because they've lost a couple games as of late. So, like, they could be in that range, in that top 15 range, where it's like, you know what? Let's add a David Bailey to put him beside Quinnen Williams and things of that nature, and let these two guys go and terrorize opposing quarterbacks. Go get after Jalen Hurts. Go get after JD5 and Jackson Dart in this division. And let's kind of make our way back up the NFC rankings. But, yeah, big-time game with a lot of key matchups. And there's a lot riding on this game, draft stock-wise. Dante Moore, think about it. If he lights up Texas Tech, like, there's no way you're telling me he's going back to school. Like, there's no way I believe that this kid's going back to school. But then if he has a subpar game, it makes it more of a conversation. So it's a lot draft-wise riding on this matchup.
Yep, I agree. But DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. And I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. On tomorrow's show, guys, we will be recapping the action from the college football playoffs and who made themselves some money, who lost themselves some money, all of that on tomorrow's show. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.